Okay, welcome back to one more presentation on the cloud computing. As we have already in our previous presentations, some of the basic aspects related to the cloud computing we have already seen, right? Like what we mean by environment, web service, or it may be web computing, or grid computing, node computing, right? So utility computing, distributed computing, and all these things we have seen, and also we have seen what exactly we mean by key performance indicator KPI. So today let us move on to some more important aspects as you make use of in our cloud computing system, right? So basically when I speak about the cloud, as you can see here, internet cloud plus clients, right? So that leads to the user applications and services. Very importantly, no boundaries and no walls. So just imagine you have your own the storage system, or you use somebody else's storage system with whatever the security or the data integrity, reliability you want. With that, if you are able to get it, then it is possible for us to make use of this service efficiently as a end user. But that doesn't mean that there are no headaches, right? There are plenty of headaches, operational headaches, but those are the responsibilities of the service providers for which you will be paying. So ultimately, what data you want, how you want that data, in what format you want that data, so that would be made available to your fingertips. So this is how the cloud computing platform works. So finally, basically, what are the different methods, or what are the different types of this cloud computing? What are the advantages? What are the concerns in the cloud computing? And what exactly we mean by the virtualization? How exactly the concept of the virtualization works in our cloud computing? All these things we need to discuss here. So cloud, it means the internet cloud plus clients, that will result in the user applications as well as the services with no boundaries and no walls. We have to create our own virtual boundaries and walls if at all we wish to have that, of course with the proper support from the service providers. So now with that very little background, let us now move on to what exactly we mean by the cloud computing. So please look at these sentences, right? Very easily understandable. A collection of services available over internet, the different services, whatever the services you wish to have, you can make use of those services as per as they are available to you, right? Legally or as per your requirement. A collection of services available over internet, and it delivers the computational functionality, whatever the computational functionality is required for your purpose using those services. It is possible for you to have those things. Deploys infrastructure over a cloud service provider. We will come to know what exactly we mean by the cloud service provider. There are several cloud service providers, and of course your Google Drive happens to be one of the most very well known or commonly used the service, the cloud service. Then you have it deploys the computing infrastructure on a utility or grid computing or web services. This is what are the different characteristic features of your cloud computing. Deploys computing infrastructure, whatever the infrastructure you need for your computing, right, wherever you are at your nodes, and that is available by your cloud computing. And it is a cloud, or it is a computing environment that includes network, system, grid of computers or servers, servers, or the data centers, right? So in a nutshell, you can understand what exactly is the cloud in this way: a computing environment that includes network, system, grid of computers or servers or data centers, that togetherly results in the the cloud service or the cloud infrastructure. So now with this, let us move on to what we have the different things in our cloud platform services, right? It provides the infrastructure for large data storage. Could it be of the devices using your RFIDs? So whenever we speak about your RFIDs, we come close to our, the IoT applications, right? Or could it be industrial plant machines, automobiles, device networks, whatnot, right? Whatever you have nowadays, when everything is almost computerized, right? So you need to have the access to any kind of data in your day-to-day life, depending upon what kind of work you are doing, right? So computing capabilities such as the data analytics or the integrated development environment, we have already seen what exactly IDE in our very beginning discussions, right? Collaborative computing, right, with the different nodes or the different entities. If at all you want to have the synchronized operation or the collaborations for the computing purpose, that also is provided by your cloud platform service. Then you have the data store sharing, right? So whatever the data you have available at your cloud services, it could be used by the multiple entities, and accordingly it is possible for us to have the data analysis. Now for example, again I take the same common example which I always used to mention. So the different the agencies want to go with the exit polls, okay? So they may have a common data, the interpretation from the different agencies may be different. So now suppose the different institutes want to grab the students to get the enrollment. So there may be some agency with all the names, mobile numbers and emails of the students passing out from your say class 10th or class 12, whatever it is applicable, right? So those database is available and it will be provided to the end users for them to use in whatever the way they want to use it. So this is what we mean by the data store sharing, okay? So these are the different things which you can find as the services from the cloud platform, okay? Then moving further, we see some of the usages of the cloud platform, right? For connecting devices, connecting data, connecting APIs or application program interfaces. We have already seen what exactly we mean by application program interfaces. Then connecting applications, services, connecting persons, connecting enterprises. We have already seen the enterprise area network, right? Connecting businesses and connecting XaaS. This is called everything as service. XaaS stands for everything as a service. I will discuss about this XaaS in detail when we come to our subsequent slides, right? So for connecting devices, connecting data, connecting APIs, applications, services, connecting persons, connecting enterprises, connecting businesses and connecting everything as a service, right? So these are some of the usages of our the cloud platforms, right? So then we have one very important thing, what we call it as virtualized environment, right? So this virtualized environment, the virtualization, as the name itself indicates, right? Virtualization is the process of running a virtual instant of computing system in a hardware environment, right? Generally it is you can take it as operating multiple operating systems on a computer simultaneously, right? So this is what is called virtualization. So this process of virtualization is very, very important whenever we make use of the cloud service. So whenever we want to use the cloud computing or the cloud infrastructure, then the process of virtualization plays a very, very important role, right? It is basically creating the software basis or virtual representation of something, right? So maybe virtual applications or virtual servers, storage or virtual network, right? So basically there is another reason why we make use of this virtualization, that is to reduce the overall cost of an IT system for the different business purpose and all, right? So anyway, that is not the matter of interest for the time being. Let us try to look into what exactly we mean by the virtualized environment, right? So it offers a running environment made to appear as one to all applications and services, but in fact physically two or many running environments and platforms may be present. That's what I mean, right? It offers a running environment made to appear as a one environment for all the applications and services, but in real time it may not be like that. You may have many running environments and platforms in the system. Maybe when you have huge amount of data and you need to store them, when multiple people are accessing it, multiple entities are trying to access this, the virtualization is one of the most important facilities or the concepts that your the cloud computing or platform or the cloud computing service has to incorporate. In a nutshell, operating multiple operating systems on a computer simultaneously, or as I've already told you, it is the process of creating a software based or virtual representation of application, server, storage or network, right? Maybe one of the intentions here is to reduce the overall cost of the system, right? So now let us try to see how exactly this virtualized environment can be seen from its characteristics. Characteristic of virtualized environment: enables applications and services to execute in an independent execution environment, right? So that is also referred to as heterogeneous computer environment. So now by having the virtualization in your cloud infrastructure or the cloud service providers, it is possible for us to have the enabling of the applications and services to execute in an independently executable environment or in a heterogeneous computing environment. Each one of them stores and executes in isolation on the same platform each one of them stores and executes in isolation on the same platform, though it may be actually executing or accessing to the set of data centers or services or distributed services or computing system, right? So virtually it appears like it is a single system, but on the background it is looking into the different accesses of the data centers or services or the distributed services, or it could be the computing systems. That's what is one of the important characteristic of virtualized environment. And how do you have the virtualization of storage? Now see, one simple example I wish to tell you. So in your Google Drive, right, so everyone will be given a storage capacity of 15 gigabytes GB, as all of you know, right? So in across the globe, how many people may be having the Google accounts? You just have a idea of those things, right? Maybe some people will be having multiple Google accounts, as you know, right? So when you multiply that 15 GB into the number of people having the Google accounts or the number of Google accounts themselves, then you just imagine what amount of storage may be required. It is not only the question of the storage. The second thing is that the accessing of the data. You have your data somewhere at somebody else's premises. As and when you need the access of the data, you should be able to get it. There should not be any problem in accessing your data, or there should not be any problem in uploading your data, right? Sometimes you may have to access the resources of the other persons whenever the sharing and other things are done. So this is a very simple example, right? Like that, there could be so many the service providers with huge amount of data at their repository, and that data will have to be accessed by all the concerned people as and when they want. So therefore the virtualization is a very very important concept here, right? So, though it appears like at one point the data is being accessed, but on the background it runs in such a way that there will be multiple entities, multiple programs, multiple services which are busy with this particular task, right? Same way we have the virtualization of the storage, whatever I have just mentioned. It means the user application or service accesses physical storage using the abstract database interface or file system or logical drive or disk drive, though in fact storage may be accessible using multiple interfaces or services, right? So whenever I want to access my data in my Google Drive, for me it appears that I take it from the Google Drive, but on the background there may be different kinds of the activities which might take place, by means of which you should be able to access your data, right? So user application or service accesses the physical storage using the abstract database interface or file system or logical drive or disk drive, though in fact the storage may be accessible using multiple interfaces or servers. So this is a concept. If you really want to go in details with the cloud computing and other things, right? So then definitely you can study all these things. What are the technologies behind these things, right? What kind of protocols that are used, who are the different service providers, all those things you can find out, right? As long as virtualization is concerned, or the virtualization methods in your the cloud computing is concerned, right? So there are different agencies which will give you a lot of virtualization softwares. Anyway, I don't want to go into those details right now. VMware you have, right? So you have got SolarWinds virtualization manager, V2 Cloud, right? So there are so many software service providers exclusively for this virtualization process. Okay, so now let us move on to the next aspect, which is coming in our cloud computing paradigm, that is the network function virtualization. We have seen the virtualization from the point of view of the applications, services, data. Now we are into the virtualization as long as the network function is concerned, right? Basically, the network function virtualization means it is a network architecture concept that uses technologies of IT virtualization of the network node function into building blocks. A user application or service access, or user application or the service accesses the resources appearing as one network. This is very very important, right? The services or the resources which are appearing as one network, though the network access to the resources may be through multiple resources and network. It is very similar to how we have made the definition as long as the virtualization of the data is concerned. From different possible entities, whatever the data you access, there it appears to be from one entity, though on the background it could be from multiple resources or the multiple sources. But similar to that, the network function virtualization is a user application or the services accessing the resources appearing as just one network, though the network access to the resources may be through multiple resources and network. So this is called as the network function virtualization. So then we have again, this I have already told you in the beginning only, user application accessing the service, but in fact accessing the services through multiple services, or the operating system, the multiple operating systems operating in a single computer system. So virtualization of the desktop, user application can change and deploy multiple desktops, though the access by the user is through their own computer platform, or in fact maybe through multiple operating systems or platforms or remote computers. So that means when you have some desktop here, so when somebody is sitting here to operate this, right? So in your the call centers and all, you may be knowing, right? So this kind of activities. So for this person, though it is his desktop or her desktop, it is possible for him or her to have the access from the multiple desktops. This is what we mean by virtualization. The different operating systems, right, being used at one particular node. This is called as the virtualization of the desktop. These things are very, very essential, especially when you want to have the access of the cloud services, right? User application can change and deploy multiple desktops, though the access by the user is through their own computer platform, that in fact may be through multiple operating systems and platforms or remote computers. So this is what we mean by virtualization of the desktop. Okay, so now as long as the virtualization is concerned, we have seen the different aspects. As long as the cloud computing is concerned, the virtualized environment, virtualized storage, then the virtualization of the network functions, virtualization of the desktop. These are the different concepts that you need to understand as long as the cloud computing is concerned or the cloud computing services are concerned, right? So then we will look into some of the important features, the advantages, as well as the concerns of our the cloud computing, right? So please look here. On demand self-service to users for the provision of storage, computer servers, software delivery and server time. This is one of the most important features, and also you can call it as advantage of going with the cloud storage, right? You don't have to have anything physically, but as per your demand, it is possible for you to have the use of the storage or the servers or the software delivery or even the server time. Okay, then resource pooling in multi-tenant model. It is possible for you to pool the resources, right, into the multi-tenant model, right? So there are different users here at the end. Okay, so there is a common resource, the exit poll survey example, which I have already told you, right? So now it is possible for you to pool the resources to the multi-tenant modules or the models. Then you have network broad accessibility in virtualized environment to the heterogeneous users, clients, systems and devices, right? So this is another important thing as long as the cloud computing features are concerned. Broadcast accessibility in virtualized environment to heterogeneous users, clients, systems and devices. And you have one more thing that is called as elasticity. In fact, I wanted to take it earlier. Anyway, elasticity. So the literal meaning of the elasticity, what exactly is elasticity, right? Basically here the elasticity denotes that the application can deploy local as well as remote applications or services and release them after the use of application, right? So that means it is the ability of the system, right, to deploy the local as well as the remote applications or even the services once you make use of them for your particular application, right? So after having made use of them, it is possible to release those applications. They are stored somewhere, right? So this is called as the elasticity. Elasticity here basically means stretching something, right? Stretching in the sense it is possible for you to hook into some data which is somewhere, and after you use it, you return it back. That is called as the elasticity here. Okay, so these are some of the important the features of the cloud computing, and you have some other things which are very very important for you to know. Massive scale availability, right? So of course it need not be explained as long as the massive scale availability is concerned, right? So then you have got scalability, right? It is scalable, maintainable, homogeneity, virtualization, interconnectivity platform with virtualized environment for enterprise, and providing of in between service level agreements. These are some of the features, right? Resilient computing, advanced security, low cost, right? So low cost maybe is a term which is always debatable, right? However, when we speak about the cost here, as the infrastructure development has taken place, the technological development has taken place over the period of time, any system would be having the cost friendly nature, right? So that is the reason why you have this particular word used here, low cost. Definitely instead of having your own system devised to hook into some data, having the use of the cloud service will be definitely always financially beneficial, right? So these are some of the important features as well as the advantages of your cloud computing. That doesn't mean that they do not have any concerns. There are limitations, right? Requirement of a constant high speed internet connection, which may not be a big issue in the present context, right? Assuming that these things are already there, let us not really consider it as a concern, right? Limitation of the services available, possible data loss, non-delivery as per defined SLAs, specified performance. You will be having some service level agreements, right? So you make your agreement with some the cloud computing or the cloud service providers, right? Sometimes it may so happen that you may not be able to get the data at your will and wish, right? So there are limitations. That time you have some the legal issues and other things coming into picture, right? So there are other concerns, like you have the different application protocol interfaces making use of used at different clouds. The application program interface, right? So they connect your data source to your services this side. So whenever you have the different kind of APIs and protocols used as different clouds, your gateway or the compatibility issues would come, and accordingly you will have to have some of the solutions for that separately, which would incur the cost again. So these type of problems are likely to occur, right? And this is one very very important and the problem with the current context, that is the security in multi-tenant environment needs high trust and low risk and loss of user control. So nowadays most of the software industries, after this pandemic has started, as you know, they have given the offer to their employees to work from home, right? So whenever you start working from home, the security becomes a very very important and major issue. When everyone is sitting at an office, right, whenever they handle the data at a common location, it is always possible to provide the security protocols and all. But when you are at different places, when your network need not be always a trusted network, then you have a lot of issues related to the security. And now work from home has become biggest concern for different companies of late, right? So in the couple of years, the different companies have even thought of spending a lot on this particular issue, that is the security issue, right? Providing securities at the different nodes would be really a very costly affair, right? Because you have hundreds or thousands of employees sitting at different places, right? How would you assure that the data integrity or the security is ascertained in all those nodes, it would be at the cost of a lot of other deployment strategies and techniques required to have the security issues addressed, right? So this is another concern, right? As long as the grid the cloud computing is concerned. Now there are different cloud deploying models, the different types of deployment models. So these are too simple to understand, right? One is referred to as the public cloud, right? As you can say, provisioned by education institutions, industries, government institutions, or business enterprises, right? Where you use the public clouds. You have private clouds exclusively used by the institutions, right? Suppose my institution want to have its own cloud, right, for the purpose of the data storage which is to be used within our entity, then we can have our own cloud, right? Industries, they can have their own clouds, business or enterprises, and it is meant for the private use of the organization by the employees without having any access to the public thing, right? So this is called as the private cloud, public cloud, and private cloud. The third one happens to be the community cloud, right? So this community cloud is exclusively for the use of the community formed by the institutions, industries, businesses or enterprises, and for the use within the community. Suppose a particular institution has got some 10 sister institutions, right? So if at all they want to exchange some data, if they want to get connected to their the higher management, right? If they want to get connected to some other the institutions of their own liking or boundary, something like that, then you will go with the community cloud, exclusive for the use of the community. Could it be formed by the institutions, industries, businesses or enterprises for the use within the community. Then you have something called as the hybrid cloud. Okay, so this hybrid cloud is a set of two or more distinct clouds. Could it be public, could it be private, or it could be community, with distinct data stores and applications that are binding between them, deploy their proprietary or standard technology, right? So now hybrid means it is the combination of the different things which I have already mentioned in terms of the public, private, or the community cloud, and with distinct data store and applications, right? So for the different kind of purpose. Okay, so these are the four type of the cloud deployment modules. Then what so far we have seen is the definition, what we mean by the cloud computing, what are the requirements of the cloud computing, that what exactly we mean by the virtualization of the cloud computings, virtualizations used in the cloud computing. Again, in that we have seen the virtualization of the environment, virtualization of the storage, virtualization of the network function, or even the virtualization of the desktop. After that, we have seen some of the important features and advantages of the cloud computing, right? So on demand service, right, huge data, right, possible to resource pooling in the multiple tenant model, then elasticity, right, scalability, then maintainability, right, homogeneity, virtualization, security, the low cost. These are the different things that we have seen. The concern, the continuous internet connection, high speed connection possible, the data loss, then sometimes it may not comply with the SLAs, the service level agreements, right? Most importantly, you may have some security issues coming, right, whenever you want to operate this system or service in a multiple node environment, right? So after having all those things seen, now we will have this as one important thing, right, as long as the cloud computing is concerned, right? So maybe we have seen the public cloud, private cloud, then the community cloud and the hybrid cloud, right? So now basically when we speak about this everything as a service, I have already told you earlier also, right? So what exactly we mean by everything as a service model, right? Basically your cloud computing, right? So it or the cloud basically connects the devices, data, application, services and businesses, and what for it is that we have already seen earlier, right? So basically it can be considered as the distribution of the service, right? Whenever I speak about the cloud computing, right, it can be considered as distribution of services. In a nutshell, you can consider the cloud service as the distribution of the services, a service for linking the resources. What are the resources? You know, the computational functions, right? The data, storage, processing functions, networks, servers and applications. All these things we have already seen. And for the provision of coordination between the resources. So this is a very important aspect as long as you understanding what exactly a cloud is concerned, right? So now we have got the cloud computing or the cloud computing paradigm can be considered by means of one simple equation, that is this. Please note here, this is the simple equation. Cloud computing is equals to SaaS plus PaaS plus IaaS plus DaaS, right? So you can understand there software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service and data as a service. So now all these things are very much essential for us to have the proper cloud service realized, right, without any interruptions, without any problem to the end users, right? Software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, data as a service, right? You know what is the meaning of the software, you know what is the meaning of the platform, what is the meaning of the infrastructure, how we would have the infrastructure defined to our applications here, and of course you know very well what exactly we mean by the data, right? So the total thing that is called as the everything as a service, that is equal to software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service and data as a service, right? So now I think it is the time for me to stop here. So whatever we have discussed now, right, if you have any questions, please get back to me.